The orbital checkpoint hung in space like a steel flower, its petals made of docking arms and sensor arrays. Through the main viewport, planet ZK-477 rotated slowly below. It looked sick. The clouds were yellow-gray, like old bruises. The continents showed patches of dark crystalline formations where forests should have been. Even from orbit, the planet seemed wrong. Voss checked her datapad for the third time. The human's credentials were legitimate, which made everything worse. She adjusted 2 of her 4 arms nervously as the cargo hauler requested docking permission. Humans were strange, everyone knew that, but this one might actually be insane. The airlock hissed open. A man stepped through, wearing a jacket that had been patched several times and carrying a duffel bag that looked older than Voss herself. He smiled at her, which was always unsettling. Humans showed too many teeth when they did that. "Dr. Kang Minho," he said, extending his hand. "Thanks for meeting me." Voss kept all 4 hands at her sides. She had read about human handshakes. They seemed unhygienic. "I am Administrator Voss of the Galactic Council Safety Commission. I must inform you that landing on ZK-477 is prohibited under Section 47 of the Hazardous World Protection Act." "I own it," Minho said simply. He pulled out a data chip and inserted it into the checkpoint's reader. Documents flooded Voss's screen. Purchase agreements, council auction records, legal transfers. All legitimate, all properly filed. "Ownership does not override safety protocols," Voss said, her voice tight. "Perhaps you do not understand. This planet is dead, not dying. Dead. The Valthian Empire used it for weapons testing for 300 years. Every weapon type you can imagine was deployed on its surface. Biological agents, chemical compounds, radiation bombs, plasma scourges. The soil itself is poison. The water glows in darkness. The air carries enough toxins to kill most species in minutes." Minho nodded along as if she was describing a mild inconvenience. "I read the survey reports. Sounds like it needs work." "Work?" Voss's translator crackled with her disbelief. "There is no work to do. Decontamination would cost more than terraforming a new world. The Council estimates natural recovery would take 10,000 years minimum. Some scientists believe the planet will never recover. You cannot fix this." "That's what my landlord said about my old apartment," Minho replied. "Turned out pretty nice after some effort." Voss pulled up images on the main screen. Wastelands of gray dirt stretching to horizons. Lakes that bubbled with chemical reactions. Forests reduced to fields of glass. "These are the most recent surface scans. Radiation levels are 12 times galactic safety limits. Toxic compound concentrations are off the measurement scales. Our hazmat teams refuse to stay longer than 6 hours, and they have military-grade protection suits." Minho studied the images with the focused attention of someone examining paint samples. "The southern continent looks promising. Less crystallization. Probably better soil structure underneath." "There is no soil," Voss said flatly. "There is toxic dust compressed into layers of poison." "Soil is just rocks and dead things broken down over time," Minho said. "Everything's something before it becomes what it is." Voss realized this conversation was going nowhere. She changed tactics. "Very well. Let me be clear about legal realities. If you land, you do so at your own risk. The Council accepts no responsibility for your death. Medical evacuation is not available. If you trigger any remaining weapon systems, you will be vaporized. If you somehow survive but become contaminated, you will not be permitted to leave the planet. You will die there alone." "I have a droid," Minho said. "Ollie, so not totally alone." From the cargo hauler's open airlock, a mechanical voice called out, "Would you like me to begin loading the filtration equipment, Dr. Kang?" "In a minute, Ollie," Minho called back. Voss tried one final approach. "Why? The galaxy has millions of beautiful worlds. Thousands are available for settlement. Why this dead place?" Minho was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. "Because everyone gave up on it. Because it's been written off as unsalvageable. Because I don't think anything is truly beyond saving if you're willing to put in the time." He looked directly at Voss with those strange human eyes. "And because I got it cheap at auction and I like a challenge." Voss pulled up the legal documents again. She searched for loopholes, for any regulation that would let her stop this madness. But everything was in order. The planet had been legally sold. Minho owned it. The council had accepted his money and transferred the deed. "I cannot stop you," she finally said. "But I will file an official objection, and I will note in my report that you were fully informed of the dangers." "That's fair," Minho said. He actually smiled again. "Hey, if I get some good results, would the council be interested in the data? Might be useful for other contaminated worlds." Voss wanted to say that there would be no results, only a corpse in a hazmat suit. But she had been trained in diplomatic courtesy. The council always values scientific data, if you survive long enough to collect any. Minho headed back to his ship. At the airlock, he turned. "You know what they say about gardens, Administrator. Voss, they look impossible before they look inevitable. Everything worthwhile does." The cargo hauler detached from the checkpoint an hour later. Voss watched it descend toward ZK-477's poisonous atmosphere, its hull heating as it cut through the toxic clouds. She prepared the incident report in advance. "Human settler," she typed. "Refused safety warnings and landed on Class 5 hazard zone. Expected survival time is less than 1 standard week." On the planet's surface, Minho's hauler touched down on a plateau of compressed gray dust. The external sensors immediately started screaming warnings. Radiation, toxins, chemical agents. The list scrolled across the screen like a nightmare menu. Minho checked his hazmat suit seals one more time. "Ollie, start unloading the habitat dome. We'll set up on that flat area to the east." Dr. Kang, "My sensors detect 73 different lethal compounds in the immediate vicinity. Recommended action is immediate departure. Noted. Start with the dome." Through the viewport, the landscape looked like something from a dead universe. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. The dirt was the color of ash and concrete mixed together. In the distance, the remains of mountains stood like broken teeth against a yellow sky. Minho stepped out onto the surface of his new home. His boots crunched on the toxic ground. The suit's systems worked overtime, filtering and protecting. He knelt down and scooped up a handful of the gray dust. Through his thick gloves, he could barely feel its texture. "Day 1, he said quietly. "Let's get to work." Above, in orbit, Voss watched the thermal signature of the small human settlement appear on her monitors. She gave it 3 days before it vanished. The first week tested every bit of patience Minho had cultivated over 20 years of working with difficult plants. The habitat dome went up without major issues, though Ollie managed to install one section backward and had to redo it. The life support systems functioned properly, creating a bubble of breathable air in the middle of a poisonous world. But everything else was a struggle. The ground fought him. That was the only way to describe it. When Minho tried to dig into the compressed gray dust, his tools hit layers that had been fused by heat and chemical reactions. The soil had the consistency of weak concrete in some places, loose ash in others. Taking samples for analysis meant using a drill instead of a shovel. "Lethal toxins detected," Ollie announced. "I know, buddy." "Lethal toxins detected." "Still no." "Lethal toxins detected." Minho looked up from his work. "Ollie, can you maybe announce it less often? Every 40 seconds is a bit much." The droid's optical sensors dimmed slightly, which Minho had learned meant Ollie was processing. "Regulations require immediate warning of lethal environmental conditions. How about every 5 minutes instead?" "That violates safety protocol OH77. I'll take full responsibility." "Updating alert frequency," Ollie said. "You will likely die, Dr. Kang." "Probably," Minho agreed. "But not today." He marked out a 10-meter square using stakes and string. This would be his testing ground. Not the whole continent, not even a full hectare, just this one small patch. He had learned long ago that trying to fix everything at once was a recipe for failure. Better to succeed in a small area than fail everywhere. The soil analysis came back worse than the surveys had indicated. Heavy metals in concentrations that would kill most plants instantly. Chemical compounds that didn't even have names in standard databases. Radiation at levels that would sterilize normal seeds. And underneath it all, the complete absence of organic matter. No dead plants, no microorganisms, no earthworms or insects. Nothing. Just toxic minerals compressed into layers. Minho sat in his dome that night, eating rehydrated rice and reviewing the numbers. Any sane person would look at this data and leave. The planet wasn't just sick. It was murdered. Every metric screamed impossible. He pulled up images on his tablet, pictures from his grandmother's garden in Busan. She had grown vegetables in soil that was mostly construction rubble and city pollution. He remembered her saying that dirt was just patience made physical. You fed it, gave it time, and it came back to life. Ollie, break out the bacteria cultures. The extremophile set. The bacteria will die in these conditions, Ollie stated. Some of them. That's why we brought 40 different types. The next morning, Minho began the real work. He started with bacteria so tough they could survive in volcanic vents and acid lakes on Earth. He mixed them with water and sprayed the solution across his 10-meter patch. Then he added biochar, a type of charcoal that could hold nutrients and give bacteria something to anchor to. The black powder looked stark against the gray dust. Nothing happened for 3 days. Minho had expected that. Bacteria worked on timescales humans couldn't see. He spent the time setting up irrigation lines and testing different water filtration methods. The groundwater was toxic, but he could clean it. Slowly. On day 4, his scanner picked up bacterial activity. Tiny amounts, but present. Something was alive in the dead soil. He introduced the first plants on day 7. Not regular plants. These were mutants, hybrids, and genetic experiments that could barely be called normal. Dandelions engineered to suck up heavy metals through their roots. Grasses that processed chemical toxins. Clover that could fix nitrogen even in poisonous conditions. Minho planted the seeds by hand, pressing each one into the soil like a promise. His hazmat suit made the work clumsy, but he managed. When he finished, his 10-meter patch looked like a grave with little hopes buried in it. Expected germination rate is 0.3%, Ollie observed. So at least one seed should sprout, Minho said. I'll take those odds. Days passed. Minho fell into a routine. Morning checks of the soil, afternoon maintenance of the dome and equipment, evening data logging and planning. The planet was silent in a way that Earth never was. No birds, no insects, no wind through leaves. Just the hum of his equipment and Ollie's occasional status reports. On day 18, Minho found the first sprout. It was a dandelion. A tiny thing, barely breaking the surface, with 2 leaves the size of his fingernail. In his grandmother's garden, he wouldn't have looked twice at it. Here it was a miracle. He knelt in the toxic dust and just stared at it for several minutes. Ollie rolled over to investigate. Single plant detected. Insufficient for ecosystem establishment. It's a start, Minho said quietly. His voice was rough. He hadn't realized how much he had needed to see this. By week 4, he had 17 plants growing. By week 6, 33. The success rate was higher than his estimates. The bacteria were working better than expected. The biochar was holding moisture and nutrients. His 10-meter patch was slowly, incredibly slowly, coming to life. He expanded to a 20-meter patch, then a 30-meter one. The work was exhausting. Every seed planted by hand, every measurement taken carefully, every failure analyzed and learned from. On day 57, something unexpected happened. Minho was checking the plants when he noticed movement. Actual movement. A small insect, barely visible, was crawling on one of the dandelion leaves. He almost didn't believe it. His scanner confirmed it was real. An insect alive on a planet that had been dead for 200 years. Where did you come from? He whispered. The insect, uninterested in his wonder, continued eating the leaf. Minho spent 3 hours trying to identify it. Finally, he found a match in the old survey records. It was a native species of ZK477, one that had been declared extinct. Somehow, somewhere, eggs or larvae had survived in the dead soil. And now, with plants to eat, they were coming back. He sat down hard, his back against the dome wall. Life was more stubborn than anyone gave it credit for. Given even the smallest chance, the tiniest opening, it came flooding back. That night, he sent his first report to the Galactic Council. It was simple. 20 meters of living soil, 43 plants, 1 insect species. Progress made. Voss received the report at her desk. She read it 3 times, checked the attached data, and then checked it again. The human was still alive. More than that, he was succeeding. She forwarded the report to the Council Science Division with a note. Impossible results from ZK477. Recommend investigation. On the planet, Minho was already asleep. Ollie stood watch outside the dome, his sensors scanning the darkness. Lethal toxins detected, the droid announced to no one, but plant life confirmed. Paradox noted, the small patch of green in the gray wasteland didn't look like much, not yet, but it was there, growing, living, refusing to accept that the planet was dead. In his sleep, Minho smiled. He was dreaming of gardens. Month 6 arrived with unexpected rain. Not the caustic precipitation that had fallen on ZK-477 for centuries, burning whatever it touched. This was actual rain, clean water, filtered through the atmospheric processing equipment Minho had set up on the plateau. The droplets fell on 5 hectares of transformed land, and for the first time in 200 years, the soil drank instead of rejected. Minho stood outside his dome without his helmet. The air in the restoration zone was breathable now, not recommended for long-term exposure, but safe enough for short periods. He tilted his face up and let the rain touch his skin. "You are being inefficient with hydration time," Ollie noted. "This rain could be collected and distributed more effectively through irrigation systems." "Sometimes inefficiency feels good," Minho said. The transformation was visible now even from orbit. Satellite images showed a patch of green spreading across the gray like spilled paint. The Galactic Council had been monitoring the progress with increasing interest. Interest had turned to disbelief. Disbelief was becoming something closer to excitement. That was why Dr. Thale was currently standing at the edge of the restoration zone, her 3 eyes wide with shock. Thale was Carusian, a species known for exceptional scientific minds and terrible social skills. She had spent 40 years studying ecological disasters. She had surveyed dead worlds, poisoned moons, and irradiated asteroids. She had never seen anything like this. "This should not exist," she said for the 5th time. Minho was kneeling beside a patch of sunflowers, checking their root development. "They're doing better than I expected. The uranium uptake is excellent." "The uranium uptake," Thale repeated slowly. "You speak of this as if it is normal." "It's pretty normal for these particular sunflowers," Minho said. "Engineered them myself. The roots bind to uranium particles and pull them up into the stems. Harvest the stems, properly dispose of them, and you've removed uranium from the soil. Simple phytoremediation." "Nothing about this is simple." Thale pulled out her scanner and waved it over the ground. "This soil was completely sterile 6 months ago. Now I am reading bacterial counts in the billions, fungal networks, root systems. There is more biological activity in this single hectare than in some living forests." Minho stood up, brushing dirt from his knees. "Life wants to live. It just needs help sometimes." Thale moved deeper into the restoration zone. Her scanner was chirping constantly, overwhelmed by data. She found grasses that neutralized nerve agents through their metabolic processes, mushroom colonies breaking down chemical compounds that had no natural decomposition path, clover fixing nitrogen in soil that should have been too toxic to support any biological function. "Your plant selection is chaotic," she observed. "There is no coherent ecosystem structure. You have Arctic plants next to tropical plants. Species that should compete for resources are growing in harmony. This violates several principles of ecological succession." "Does it work?" Minho asked. "Obviously it works. That is what disturbs me. This should not work." They walked to the center of the restoration zone where Minho had set up a small pond. The water was clear enough to see the bottom. Cattails and water lilies grew around the edges. Small aquatic insects skated across the surface. "The water processing is the key to everything," Minho explained. "Constructed wetlands. The plants filter toxins while providing habitat. The insects help with pollination. The whole system feeds itself once it gets started." Thale knelt by the pond and took a water sample. Her scanner processed it. "This water is cleaner than the drinking water on some civilized worlds." "How?" "Patience," Minho said. "And lots of water lilies. They're really good at filtering heavy metals." Something caught Thale's eye, a small plant growing at the edge of the pond, tucked between 2 rocks. She scanned it, checked the results, scanned it again. Her third eye, the one used for detail work, focused intently on the plant. "Dr. Kang," she said quietly. "Where did this plant come from?" Minho looked at what she was examining. It was a simple thing with 3 leaves and a thin stem. He had not planted it. "I don't know why. This is a native ZK-477 species, classified as extinct 2 centuries ago." Thale's voice had gone very quiet. "It should not exist. The seeds should have been destroyed by the weapons testing. Minho knelt beside her, studying the little plant. Seeds can survive a long time in the right conditions. Maybe buried deep, maybe protected by rock formations. He reached out and gently touched one of the leaves. It was waiting. All this time just waiting for a chance. Thale sat back on her heels. In 40 years of studying dead worlds, she had never seen an extinct species spontaneously return. She had written papers on why it was impossible. And here was this small human, who had made the impossible happen by simply refusing to accept that it was impossible. The Galactic Council will want to fund this project, she said. Properly fund it. We will send equipment, researchers, supplies. We can accelerate the restoration significantly. I don't want to accelerate it, Minho said. Fast changes don't last. Slow growth has deep roots. That is botanically accurate but practically frustrating. Minho smiled. I'll accept the supplies. And the funding. But not a full research team. Too many people will complicate things. Me and Ollie have a system that works. From across the restoration zone, Ollie called out, "Lethal toxins detected in Sector 7. See?" Minho said. He keeps me informed. By the end of Thala's visit, she had collected enough data for 20 research papers. She had also filed an official report recommending that ZK-477's classification be changed from Dead World to Restoration in Progress. The Council approved it within a week. The news spread through the galactic networks like wildfire. A human was healing a dead planet. A single human with old equipment and stubborn determination was achieving what the entire Galactic Council had declared impossible. Journalists arrived. Minho ignored most of them. One Kelthran reporter managed to catch him while he was harvesting vegetables from his garden. Actual vegetables now, growing in actual soil. How does it feel to be famous? The reporter asked. Minho held up a mutated turnip. It was larger than normal and had an odd purple color. I'm not famous. These turnips are doing the real work. They're pulling cadmium out of the ground. But you are inspiring billions across the galaxy. I'm just gardening, Minho said. People are reading way too much into this. The reporter's translator struggled with the human concept of humility. You have transformed a weapons testing ground into a garden. You have brought extinct species back to life. You have proven that no world is truly beyond saving. How is this just gardening? Minho thought about that while examining the turnip. Finally, he said, because that's all it ever is. You put seeds in the ground. You water them. You pull weeds, you wait. Gardens don't care about being impossible. They just grow if you give them a chance. That quote would be repeated across 1,000 worlds. But in the moment, Minho just put the turnip in his harvest basket and moved to the next row. Above the planet, in orbit, Voss watched the green patch expand. It covered 12 hectares now. The human had been right. She had been wrong. She filed a report recommending him for a Council Citizenship Award. She would never admit it to anyone, but sometimes she pulled up the satellite images just to watch the green area grow. There was something deeply satisfying about watching dead things come back to life. The Valthene transport ship descended through ZK-477's atmosphere with the kind of aggressive piloting that made a statement. It landed 50 meters from Minho's habitat dome, close enough to be intimidating but not quite close enough to be an act of war. The exit ramp dropped with a hydraulic hiss and Commander Resch stepped out. Valthene were imposing by design. 7 feet tall, covered in armored plates that were part biology and part cultural aesthetic. Resch wore military decorations that marked him as a veteran of 3 major conflicts. His 2 guards were equally decorated. They looked like they had come to shut down an illegal operation. Minho was transplanting ferns when they arrived. He looked up, waved, and went back to work. Resch approached with heavy footsteps. His translator crackled to life. You are Dr. Kang Minho, human owner of this world. That's me, Minho said, carefully positioning a fern in the soil. Give me just a second. These roots are delicate, the commander waited. His guards shifted their weight, unsure how to respond to being made to wait for plant care. When Minho finally stood and brushed dirt from his knees, Resch handed him a data tablet. This planet was designated as Military Memorial Site 12 by the Valthene Empire. It stands as a monument to our weapons development program. Your agricultural activities are in violation of memorial preservation codes. Minho read through the document. It was impressively official, full of legal language and formal declarations. I don't see how planting gardens violates anything. I'm not disturbing any monuments. There aren't any monuments here. The entire planet is the monument, Resh said. His voice carried the kind of authority that expected obedience. It demonstrates the power of Valthene weapons. The permanent alteration of an entire biosphere stands as testament to our military capabilities. You killed a planet and called it a monument? Mino said. He wasn't angry, just confused. That's like burning down a library and calling it art. You insult our heritage. I'm healing a wounded world. If your heritage is based on keeping things dead, maybe it needs updating. The translator struggled with that concept. Resh's armored plates shifted in a way that indicated irritation. You are one human, with primitive equipment and simple plants. This changes nothing. The Death Garden remains dead regardless of your small efforts. Then why are you here? Mino asked. It was a simple question, but it hit hard. Resh had no good answer. If the humans' work truly changed nothing, there was no reason for an official visit from a decorated commander. The silence stretched. One of the guards broke protocol and spoke. Commander, the humans' restoration zone is visible from orbit. The images have spread across galactic networks. Many are saying the Valthene Memorial is being improved. Silence, Resh snapped. He turned back to Minho. Your actions embarrass the Empire. A dead world killed by our weapons is being healed by garden tools. This is unacceptable. So stop me, Minho said. He gestured to the green around them. File legal challenges. Bring in your own experts. Prove I'm wrong. But you can't because life doesn't care about military pride. It just grows. Resh was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a decision. Very well. The Valthene Empire issues a formal challenge. You claim you can restore this world, prove it. Restore 50 hectares within 1 standard year. If you succeed, the Empire will issue a formal apology and fund further restoration. If you fail, you will leave and acknowledge this world as a permanent memorial to Valthene power. Minho considered it. He currently had 12 hectares restored. 50 in 1 year was ambitious. Probably impossible. He looked at the fern he had just planted, its small leaves trembling in the breeze. Deal, he said. The agreement was formalized within hours. Galactic news networks picked up the story immediately. The human versus the Empire. The gardener versus the warriors. It was the kind of narrative that people loved. Public opinion shifted dramatically in Minho's favor. The image of him kneeling in the dirt, face to face with an armored commander, became iconic. Donations poured in. Supply ships arrived weekly with equipment, seeds, and materials from hundreds of worlds. But Minho quickly realized he needed help. 14 hectares in 2 weeks. 20 hectares in 4 weeks. The work was overwhelming. He was spending 18 hours a day planting, watering, testing, and maintaining. Ollie's servos were wearing out from constant use. He put out a call for 3 assistants. Thousands applied. He chose carefully. Not the most qualified, but the most dedicated. Yoon Daiho arrived first. He was a hydrologist from Earth, specialized in water reclamation. He took one look at Minho's pond system and immediately started redesigning it. You are wasting 40% efficiency, Daiho said, sketching on a tablet. We need channels here, here, and here, terracing on this slope, and a reservoir at the high point for gravity-fed distribution. Can you build all that in time? Minho asked. Can you stop me? Daiho replied. Park Soman came next. Agricultural engineer, expert in crop rotation and soil management. She looked at Minho's chaotic plant arrangements and actually laughed. This is a disaster, she said cheerfully. A successful disaster, but still a disaster. You have nitrogen-fixing plants stealing resources from plants that need that nitrogen. You have incompatible species competing for the same nutrients. It works, but it could work so much better. Can you fix it without disrupting what's already growing? Minho asked. I can try, Soman said. She was already taking soil samples. Lee Jisoo was the last to arrive. Microbiologist specialized in extremophile bacteria. She spent her first 3 days doing nothing but taking samples and running tests in her portable lab. Your bacterial colonies are fascinating, she said during dinner on the 4th day. They are adapting faster than theoretical models predict. I think they are actually communicating with each other, sharing successful genetic modifications. Is that possible? Minho asked. It should not be, Jisoo said. But neither should any of this. I'm going to culture new strains. We can accelerate the soil remediation significantly. The 4 of them fell into a rhythm. Daiho managed water systems, creating networks of channels that distributed cleaned water throughout the restoration zone. Soman organized the plantings, creating rotation schedules and companion planting strategies that maximized growth. Jisoo cultured bacteria, developing new strains weekly that targeted specific toxins, and Minho coordinated everything, working longer hours than all of them. Month 14 arrived. 43 hectares restored. Month 16, 51 hectares, they had done it. With 2 months to spare. The verification team arrived from the Galactic Council. They spent a full week measuring, testing, and confirming. The report was unambiguous. 58 hectares of restored living ecosystem on a planet that had been dead for 2 centuries. Commander Resh received the news on his flagship. He read the report 3 times. Then he drafted the apology himself. It was terse, formal, and legally binding. The Valthine Empire acknowledges the successful restoration efforts of Dr. Kang Minho and his team. We formally apologize for designating a healing world as a memorial to destruction. We commit funding in the amount of... The number made his military accountant go pale. The apology was broadcast across galactic networks. Some Valthine traditionalists were outraged, but many more, especially younger generations, saw it differently. There was honor in admitting error. There was strength in supporting renewal over destruction. On ZK-477, Minho sat with his team around a small fire. They were eating dinner outside in the breathable air surrounded by living plants. 58 hectares, Diho said. Not bad. 300 next year, Soman added. 1,000 within 5 years, Jisoo said. Minho looked at the stars above. Somewhere up there, people were watching, learning, maybe planting their own seeds on their own dead worlds. 1 plant at a time, he said quietly. That is how you change everything. 2 years after Minho first set foot on the dead world, he stood at the edge of 300 hectares of living ecosystem and watched the sunrise. The sky was different now. The yellow-gray clouds had given way to actual weather patterns. White clouds, blue sky in places. The air smelled like soil and growing things instead of chemicals and death. A bird called in the distance, an actual bird, from a species that had supposedly gone extinct when the Valthine weapons turned forests to ash. But life, as Minho had learned, was more stubborn than anyone expected. Seeds had survived, eggs had waited, and when the conditions were right, when someone gave them a chance, they came back. Oli rolled up beside him. The old droid had been repaired so many times that he was more patches than original parts, but he still functioned, still announced toxic alerts, though now they came every few hours instead of every few minutes. Morning environmental scan complete, Oli reported. Air quality and restoration zone is suitable for unprotected human exposure. Soil toxicity has decreased by 97% from baseline measurements. Water systems are functioning at full capacity. Native species count has reached 43 confirmed types. 43, Minho repeated. That's 12 more than last month. Life proliferates when given opportunity, Oli said. This observation seems obvious now, but it was not obvious 2 years ago, Minho smiled. Oli had developed what might be called a personality, or at least a tendency toward philosophical observations. Behind them, the ZK-477 Restoration Institute stood on the hillside. It had started as 3 prefab buildings and a greenhouse. Now it was a proper research facility with dormitories, laboratories, training centers, and administrative offices. 50 full-time staff worked there, with another 100 volunteers cycling through on temporary assignments. The galactic community had embraced the project with unexpected enthusiasm. Universities sent students. Governments sent scientists. Private citizens sent donations. What had started as one human's stubborn refusal to accept a dead world had become a movement. Deho found Minho at the observation point. He carried 2 cups of coffee, a luxury that supply ships now brought regularly. Planning the next expansion? Minho accepted the coffee. Thinking about the 1,000-hectare mark. We could hit it by next year if we push. The Institute Council wants to go slower, Deho said. They worry about maintaining quality if we expand too fast. They're probably right, Minho admitted. But I keep thinking about all the other dead worlds out there. Every month we spend perfecting our methods is a month they stay poisoned. We are training people, Deho pointed out. 40 students graduated last month. They will spread these techniques across the galaxy. It was true. The Institute had become the premier location for studying ecological restoration. Scientists from hundreds of worlds came to learn phytoremediation, mycoremediation, and the practical application of patience. Minho taught courses on soil recovery. Somin lectured on agricultural systems. Jisoo led workshops on bacterial cultivation. Daeho trained engineers in water management. They were not just healing one world. They were teaching the galaxy how to heal. Later that morning, Minho walked through the restoration zone with a group of students. They came from 6 different worlds. Their appearances varied and strange to each other, but united in purpose. The key is understanding that you cannot rush life, Minho explained. He knelt beside a patch of native grasses. These took 8 months to establish. 8 months of daily watering, weekly testing, constant adjustment. There is no shortcut, no magic solution, just time and attention. A Kelthran student raised 2 of her 4 hands. Dr. Kang, what do you do when results are slower than expected? How do you maintain hope? Minho thought about his first weeks on the planet. The gray wasteland, the toxic alerts, the crushing weight of trying to heal an entire murdered world with hand tools and seeds. You focus on small victories, he said finally. 1 sprout, 1 insect, 1 square meter of living soil. You cannot heal a planet all at once, but you can heal 1 small patch, and then another, and another. Eventually, the small patches connect. They walked to the native species preserve, an area where plants and animals that had supposedly gone extinct were returning naturally. A small tree stood in the center, its branches spreading wide. It was young, barely 10 feet tall, but it was alive. This is ZK477's native oak species, Minho explained. We did not plant it. It grew from a seed that survived 200 years of weapons testing, buried deep in the soil. It waited. And when conditions were right, it grew. The students gathered around the tree, scanning it, taking samples, asking questions. Minho stepped back and let Somin take over the technical explanation. He had learned that teaching meant knowing when to speak and when to let others share their knowledge. That afternoon, a ship arrived from the Galactic Council. Administrator Voss emerged, her 4 arms carrying data tablets and official documents. She had visited the planet 12 times in 2 years. Each visit lasted longer than the previous one. Dr. Kang, she said formally, the Council has reached a decision regarding ZK477's permanent status. They walked to Minho's original habitat dome. He had kept it as a reminder, though he now lived in better quarters at the Institute. The 10-meter square where he had planted his first seeds was still there, marked with a simple sign. The Council has officially reclassified this world, Voss continued. No longer a hazard zone, no longer a dead world. It is now designated as Restoration World 1, the first in galactic history. Restoration World 1, Minho repeated. So there will be others? 17 planets have already applied for restoration programs, Voss said. Using your techniques, your methods. You have proven it is possible. Now everyone wants to try. She handed him a tablet. It showed images of other dead worlds. Mining planets stripped to bedrock, war-torn moons, industrial wastelands. And beside each image, plans, restoration schedules, teams being assembled, seeds being gathered. You started something, Voss said quietly. Something that will outlive all of us. That evening, the Institute held a celebration. Nothing fancy, just dinner outside under the stars, breathing air that had been poisonous 2 years ago. The staff and students gathered, sharing food and stories. Commander Resch appeared on the communication screen. The Valthene had become unexpected supporters of the project, contributing funds and occasionally sending military engineering teams to help with infrastructure. Dr. Kang, Resch said, the Empire wishes to formally announce our next contribution. We are funding the restoration of 3 additional dead worlds, using methods developed at your institute. That's generous, Minho said. It is strategic, Resch corrected. Worlds that live are more valuable than worlds that demonstrate our ability to kill them. This was obvious. We simply needed a human to show us. After the call ended, Minho sat with his core team. Daeho, Somin, and Jisoo had become more than colleagues. They were friends bound by shared purpose and countless hours of work. What happens when we finish? Somin asked. When this whole planet is restored. There are 17 other planets waiting, Jisoo said. Perhaps more by then. I think we train others to do this work, Minho said. We create teams for each planet. Share what we have learned. Let them adapt our methods to their specific conditions. And you? Daeho asked. Will you stay here? Minho looked out across the restoration zone. In the fading light, he could see the green spreading across the landscape. In the distance, native animals moved through the undergrowth. Insects hummed in the air. Life, abundant and determined, filled spaces that had been empty for 2 centuries. "I think I will stay," he said. "This is home now. These plants need tending. Students need teaching, and there is still so much work to do." Ollie rolled over to the group. "Toxic alert in outer sector 47. Minimal threat. Normal background levels." "Thanks, Ollie," Minho said. They sat in comfortable silence as night fell. Above them, stars appeared. Ships moved in orbit, bringing more supplies, more students, more seeds. The dead world was becoming a garden, and from that garden, knowledge was spreading across the galaxy. Minho thought about his grandmother's garden in Busan. She had grown vegetables in difficult soil with limited resources. She had taught him that gardens were not about perfection. They were about patience, attention, and the stubborn belief that things could grow if you gave them a chance. He had brought that lesson to a dead planet, and the dead planet had come back to life. Years from now, people would study what happened on ZK-477. They would analyze the techniques, improve the methods, develop new technologies. The Institute would grow. The restoration would spread across the planet and then to other worlds. But tonight, in this moment, it was simple. A human and his friends, sitting in a garden they had built together, watching life bloom where everyone said nothing would ever grow again. "Tomorrow we start on Sector 19, Salman said. "I will prepare new bacterial cultures," Jisoo added. "Water channels need extending," Deho noted. Minho smiled. "One plant at a time. That is how we change everything." The garden grew in the darkness, patient and eternal, proving that no world was ever truly beyond saving. It just needed someone willing to plant the first seed.